Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Sophia, and today we're diving into something that honestly touches all of us: stress. Not the dramatic life crisis kind necessarily, but the everyday kind. The kind that sneaks up on you quietly and settles into your shoulders before you even notice it's there. Today, Jake and I are going to have a real, honest conversation about stressful days, what they feel like, how our bodies and minds react, and the small habits that actually help us feel a little more grounded.
And I want to emphasize that word, real. This isn't going to be a perfectly polished talk about stress management tips you've already heard. We're going to speak naturally, the way two people actually talk when they're being honest about how hard life can feel sometimes. And for those of you listening in English as a second language, we want you to hear how native speakers express emotions, not just the vocabulary, but the rhythm and texture of it.
Exactly. Because a lot of English learners know the word stressed, but they don't always know how to talk around it. How to describe what it feels like inside your chest, or your jaw, or your head. Those smaller, more physical descriptions of emotion, that's what we're exploring today. And if you happen to be listening on a difficult day yourself, we genuinely hope this feels like a quiet, peaceful space for your mind.
So let's start somewhere honest. Sophia, when was the last time you felt really, genuinely stressed?
Honestly, just a few days ago. And what made it interesting is that it wasn't one enormous problem. There was no single disaster. It was more like a slow accumulation. Small things, one after another, quietly piling up until the weight of them became hard to ignore. It reminded me of laundry, actually. Each item alone is nothing, but when you've ignored it for a week, suddenly it's an overwhelming mountain.
That's such a relatable image. I think most of our stressful days look like that, don't they? Not one earthquake, just a long series of small tremors.
Exactly. And mine started early. I woke up already feeling mentally tired before the day had even properly begun. That groggy, heavy feeling where your body is technically awake, but your mind hasn't really arrived yet. And then, almost immediately, my phone filled with messages, notifications, emails, a few requests, and just like that, the morning was already complicated.
Phones really are incredible mood changers, aren't they? One stressful email at 7 a.m., and suddenly your whole body tightens. Your shoulders go up, your breathing changes, and you haven't even had breakfast.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's so physical. I think people imagine stress as something that lives purely in the mind, like anxious thoughts spinning around. But often, your body feels it first. My shoulders were tight almost before I'd consciously registered that I was stressed. It was as if my nervous system received the message and responded before my brain had time to catch up.
That's such a good observation. Tight shoulders, a heavy chest, shallow breathing, a faster heartbeat. Stress really does live in the body just as much as in the mind. And I've noticed something else on my stressful days. I become unusually forgetful. I'll walk into a room with a clear intention and then stand there blankly, having completely lost the thread.
Oh, that happens to me too. I once walked into my kitchen 3 separate times in the space of an hour, and each time I arrived, I had no idea why I was there. It's almost funny in retrospect, but in the moment, it feels genuinely unsettling, like your own brain is working against you.
It's because the brain is simply overloaded. There's too much competing for attention, so normal memory functions start to slip. And something else I notice is that my focus becomes incredibly fragile on stressful days. One tiny notification, a buzz, a ping, and suddenly 20 minutes have evaporated. What were we talking about?
Exactly that. And there's something strange about how stress distorts time, too. The whole day feels rushed and chaotic, everything happening too fast. But somehow, when you reach the evening, very little has actually been finished. It creates this strange paradox where you feel exhausted from busyness, yet have almost nothing to show for it.
That's what people call mental fog, I think. You're technically conscious and functioning, but nothing is clear. It's like trying to think through frosted glass. Your brain is running, but none of the output is sharp.
That's the perfect description. And here's something I've noticed that sounds almost too simple to be true. On my worst days, I stop breathing properly. Not dramatically, not in any obvious way, but my breathing becomes very shallow and fast, up in my chest rather than deep in my belly. And I don't notice it for hours sometimes.
I thought I was the only one. It really does happen. Your body quietly shifts into a kind of survival mode. Short, tight breaths, elevated heart rate, muscles slightly tensed. And it persists all day without you being aware of it. I actually used to think breathing exercises were a bit silly, to be honest. I thought they were something invented for people who didn't have real problems.
I had the exact same skepticism. But then one evening, I caught myself and realized I'd been breathing like a panicked animal for about 6 hours straight. That was a turning point. I tried a few slow, intentional breaths, and the effect was genuinely surprising. Not a miracle, the stress didn't vanish, but something in my chest loosened.
And that's the key, isn't it? Calm breathing doesn't erase the problem, but it interrupts the physical stress cycle long enough for your mind to get a little more space. And sometimes that small space is exactly what you need.
Can we talk about something that I think has made stress significantly harder in the last decade or so? The fact that it follows you everywhere now. Years ago, when you left your workplace, you left your work. Your stress had a physical container. It stayed in the office. But now, your phone is your office, and your sofa, and your bedroom.
It's such a real shift, and I think a lot of people feel it without quite being able to name it. The stress doesn't clock out. It sits beside you on the couch in the evening. It waits on your nightstand. There's no clear boundary between work time and rest time anymore, and that constant availability is genuinely exhausting for the nervous system.
That's exactly why I think protecting small, peaceful moments has become so important. More important than it used to be. Because they no longer happen automatically. You have to intentionally create them. A walk without your phone. A meal without a screen. 10 minutes of actual quiet. These aren't luxuries anymore. I think they're necessities.
Tiny emotional reset buttons. That's what they are. So what actually helps you, Sophia? When you're in the middle of a stressful day, what do you reach for?
The thing that helps me most is slowing down physically. It sounds counterintuitive because when I'm stressed, I start doing everything faster. Walking faster, eating faster, typing faster, even thinking faster. It's like my body interprets urgency as the correct response to everything. So I've started intentionally doing the opposite. I make my movements slower and more deliberate.
That's a fascinating technique. You're essentially using your body to send a different signal to your brain.
Exactly. Even something as mundane as making tea slowly, filling the kettle carefully, watching it boil, pouring deliberately, changes something. It pulls your attention into the present moment. It tells your nervous system that not everything is an emergency. And washing dishes while listening to quiet music does something similar. These small, ordinary physical actions become a kind of anchor.
That phrase, not everything is an emergency, feels really significant. Because I think a lot of stressed people, myself included, end up living in a kind of permanent emergency mode. Even during genuinely calm moments, the body is still braced for impact, still waiting for something to go wrong.
Yes, and that low-grade alertness is draining. It's not as dramatic as acute stress, but it's persistent. And it makes the body and mind tired in a way that sleep alone doesn't always fix.
I want to share something that happened to me recently, because I think it illustrates exactly this. I was at home, sitting at my desk answering emails, a completely ordinary situation. And at some point, I noticed that my jaw hurt, actually ached.
From clenching it?
Yes, I had been clenching my jaw for what must have been hours without any conscious awareness of it. No one had told me to. Nothing dramatic was happening. But my body was carrying tension that my mind hadn't even acknowledged yet. It was a strange moment, realizing that my stress had been so thoroughly physical while I thought I was just quietly working.
That's such a good example of what I mean when I say the body often notices stress before the mind admits it. We think we're fine. We're functioning, we're getting things done. But underneath, the body is keeping score.
So I stopped. I closed my laptop, made tea, opened the window, and just sat there for a few minutes. No phone, no task, just the air and the quiet.
And did it help?
It did, genuinely. Not magically. The emails still existed, the deadlines hadn't disappeared, but my thoughts were quieter, less noisy. And I realized something during those few minutes that I keep coming back to. Calmness doesn't always mean happiness. It doesn't mean your problems are solved or your life is perfect. Sometimes, calmness simply means your mind finally has enough room to breathe. That's it. Just space.
I think that might be one of the most honest things you can say about stress management. We wait for life to become perfectly peaceful before allowing ourselves to feel calm, and life rarely becomes perfectly peaceful. So real calmness has to be something you practice inside the messiness, not after it ends.
Exactly. Staying grounded even when things feel chaotic. That's the goal. Not the absence of chaos, just your ability to remain steady within it.
Let's talk about those days when even the smallest things feel enormous. You know the ones. When you spill your coffee and it genuinely upsets you in a way that's entirely disproportionate. When one unexpected message completely derails your mood for an hour.
Oh, yes, I know those days very well. And the strange thing is, you can often feel it coming. You wake up with that sense of emotional fragility, like your resilience is paper thin and the slightest friction is going to tear through it.
It's because on stressful days, the nervous system becomes hypersensitive. Normally, minor irritations don't register strongly. But when you're already carrying a lot, there's no buffer left. Everything lands harder. It's like being so loaded down with bags that when someone hands you one tiny extra item, you want to cry. Not because of the item, but because of everything that came before it.
I once had a day like that, where 3 separate things went wrong within about 20 minutes of each other. First, an important meeting got moved to an earlier slot, that annoying kind of reschedule that forces you to reorganize your whole morning. Then, my internet stopped working completely. And then, a message arrived reminding me about something urgent I had entirely forgotten.
3 things, 20 minutes. I can feel that just hearing it.
My heart rate went up noticeably. I could feel it. And immediately, my thoughts started becoming very negative, as if those 3 inconveniences were evidence that everything in my life was falling apart. Which is, of course, completely irrational. But stress doesn't negotiate with rationality.
That's something I find really interesting about stress. It makes problems feel permanent. In the moment, you can't see the edge of it. You can't feel that it's going to pass. Emotionally, it feels endless, even when logically you know it isn't.
So, what helped you eventually?
Honestly, what helped most was stopping the effort to control everything at once. I realized I was mentally fighting 10 imaginary future problems simultaneously, none of which had actually happened yet. My brain had taken 3 real inconveniences and extrapolated them into a whole series of future disasters. And fighting imaginary disasters is exhausting because they're infinite.
That's such a clear description of what anxious minds do. The imagination just keeps generating worst-case scenarios, and you keep reacting to them as if they're real. It's like being chased by ghosts you created yourself.
Exactly. So I started making my world smaller, at least temporarily. Instead of thinking about the whole week and everything that might go wrong, I asked myself, what do I actually need right now? Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. And the answer was usually something very simple. Water, food, a few minutes outside, fresh air, something grounding and physical.
It's remarkable how often stressed people forget the most basic human needs. I've had days where I looked up at 4 p.m. and realized I had barely eaten and hadn't left the building. My brain had been running on empty for hours and somehow didn't connect the mental fog to the fact that it had no fuel.
Stress disconnects us from our bodies. You get trapped inside your thoughts, the endless loop of worry and planning, and your physical self becomes an afterthought. Which is why walks help so much, even a short one. 15 minutes outside and something in the mental noise genuinely quiets down.